Hmm.
All right, everyone, welcome back to the Holistic Ease podcast. This is episode 50. And for episode 50, I have a very special guest to introduce to you. This is my new friend, Jenn Pike. She is a powerhouse woman, and you are going to love learning about all of the different things that she does when she works with women for nutrition, for fitness, for mindset. And she is a functional diagnostic nutritionist, a registered holistic nutritionist, a medical exercise specialist. She has many different fitness certifications, including yoga, Pilates, CrossFit, and more. She's a mom of two, and she specializes in women's hormones. Specifically, she has a couple of different big projects. One of them is called the Hormone Project, and then she also has a podcast called the Simplicity Project. So check that out after you listen to this episode. I'm sure you're going to want to know more about her. So welcome, Jenn. We're so excited to have you on today's episode. And do you want to just take a few minutes to introduce yourself, talk about, why you're so passionate about wellness and how you got into wellness?
Yeah, I feel like it's been my whole life, honestly, from a really young age. My dad was taking me to the gym with him just to kind of as he was working out, I was 6 years old in that environment. And, so I grew up being very comfortable there. And from a young age, I loved being in that, with fitness and that. I grew up in a household, my parents cooked all of our meals. And so it was just very natural for me. When I got to the point where I was going away to college, I knew that I wanted to do something in this field. I love how it made me feel. I loved helping other people. And my path started off working with athletes, actually. And so I was working predominantly with a lot of men, a lot of guys, a lot of hockey players. Hockey players was mainly what I was doing. And at the same time, I was working part-time at a gym in the town where I grew up with a lot of women. And there was a lot of polarity. So I'd go work with these athletes who had full teams and, the chiro, the nutritionist, it was just easy for them because I was working with NHL players, like professional hockey players.
Well,
so it was super fun because the training dynamics were amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd go back to working with women and moms, and I wasn't a mom then. And I was just like, wow, you are working a full-time job. You have kids. You're just trying to carve out the littlest bit of time. You do not have a support team in a village. And over time, I was like, you're really the athlete of everyday life. And I started to become less attracted to working with actual, paid athletes and more with these women where I knew I wanted to be a mom. And I was like, how do you ever strike a level of feeling balanced and feeling good in your body and that? And so that's what I started to dive into more. It was working with women. And then over time, I recognized that with nutrition and movement, we could, gain some momentum and create change, but there was still something missing. We would get them to a certain level and they'd be coming back and saying I'm losing clumps of hair. I cannot get out of bed. I'm not sleeping. My cycle is changing. And that is really what moved me down the path of understanding more about the endocrine system and hormones. And once I always say, I literally moved into the endocrine system and I've yet to relocate.
I love it.
And it's because simultaneously I was learning so much about my own body. And then we decided to start a family, and that just, opened up a whole new door and changed everything. And, 24 years later in practice, here I am, and I'm still a ferocious learner. And every woman that I work with teaches me something new. And I just think our bodies as women are the most beautiful gift that we have been given. And there is so much that we undervalue because we don't understand it, because we're not being taught. And we have two kids now that are 12 and almost 15. And my oldest is a girl, is my daughter. And so it's been such a amazing journey watching her grow into a young woman and being able to give her wisdom and information that I didn't even have growing up, and seeing the differences of what her friends know and, different things like that. So yeah, it is as much my life as it is my business. It's everything that I do and who I am.
I love that. And it is very thorough. I do have to say, just looking over some of your materials on your website, jennpike.com, you are working with women on their cycles, but you're working on it from nutrition. You're working on it from fitness, you're working on essential
Mm.
oils, you're working on herbal protocols. So you're really kind of taking the whole package together and helping that woman to fill in any gaps that she might have in her current wellness protocol. And I think that's really exciting to see that you have so many tools in your toolbox.
Yeah. And we're also continuing to like, listen, I do not know everything, but I know a lot of really amazing people who know how to fill in the gaps for what I don't know. So I'm also huge about community and collaboration.
Mhm.
So when we work with women, you know, we are the, I always say, like, oftentimes when women come into my practice, I'm the last stop on their struggle train. And then it's like we expose them to a different way of learning and empowerment versus just telling them.
Yeah.
And we get them to become critical thinkers. We get them to ask critical questions. And then what we also do is help to connect them with other practitioners, you know, other modalities of therapy, of healing, ways of living and being that help to continue the journey moving forward.
Okay, I love that. So looking through your different list of certifications that you have, most of those I'm familiar with, but one that I did want to just take a little sidebar here and ask you about was medical exercise specialist. What is that? And how are you using
Yeah.
it differently?
So when I was doing a lot of the training with the athletes, are we still connected? I just want to make sure. You're froze on my end.
Yeah, I
Are
can,
we good?
yeah, we're good. I can still.
Okay. All right. Um, is that I recognized there was this, again, there were all these gaps. And so with the medical exercise specialist, it was taking like rehab and almost kind of like a physio approach to that next level. It was moving people beyond their activities of daily living. And so with me, with women, I did that simultaneously while I did a pre and postnatal specialist certification, because I was getting these women coming back after giving birth. Now all of a sudden they had hip issues, back pain, you know, pelvic floor dysregulation, all of these things going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just started to dabble, you know, and add those things in. And I spent time in a post rehab, you know, clinic for a while and did a level of like an internship there. And I think part of it for me too is I was trying to figure out, like, do I want to continue to work with the physical body from an exercise and movement space, or do I want to be working more on the actual physiology of the body, or do I want to marry them together? And so it's the reason I have so many different certifications. I mean, I hold 7 different yoga teacher trainings
Wow.
because yeah, I mean, thank goodness I had kids, because that finally slowed me down from stopping taking so many different courses, because I'm just so curious, and there's so many different portals into our bodies on many different levels, and I just love it all.
Yeah, that's amazing. So when a woman comes and works with you, what does that initial process look like? Because I know that you're focusing a lot on hormones. So
Mhm.
are you starting out with specific functional testing? What does it look like when you're working with somebody when you're first meeting them?
So now it's much more specific, because I only work with women inside the Hormone Project. So when they come to me for their initial consult, when we're onboarding them into the program, this is really its timeline. So I want to understand more about not just who they are today, but I need to understand where they've come from. So we go back into childhood, even if they know things about what their mother's pregnancy and birth with them was like, what their health was like as a child, how old were they when they got their menstrual cycle, what was that like? Take me through the journey of your teen years. Were you ever on birth control? Did you ever suffer from any issues going on, like missing school for painful periods, acne, depression? What were the 20s like? Have you ever had any pregnancies? Let's talk more about that. What were your deliveries and your postpartum period like? And, you know, coming all the way up into, where is your cycle at now? Explain to me how your body responds to stress. How do you nourish your body? You know, what is your sleep like? Like we really go deep on all of the things that are making up who this woman is now, that is sitting in front of me today. Because people will come and say, I'm suffering from this, 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 and that. Well, okay, that I'm going to take note of that, but I need to understand where this has come from, how long it's been going on for. What was the catalyst? Was it major stress? Was it food poisoning? Was it being on synthetic hormones? You know, what was going on? And then from there, we do functional testing. So we do comprehensive blood work, like a full panel. And that can be tricky sometimes depending on the province or state or country that the woman lives in in terms of what the regulations are there. So we've really, as a company, learned how to circumvent.
Yeah.
We create scripts for women of like how to approach the conversation. A lot of women don't even know that they can pay out of pocket for these versus only being able to get it from their physician.
Mhm.
And then we do a Dutch test as well, which is a dried urinary test for comprehensive hormones. Why this is so important is that looking at blood serum alone, that is a snapshot in time. It doesn't tell us the full picture or the full spectrum of what's happening with our hormones. So I'm not only curious to know what level of hormones are in your body right now, I want to know, what do you do once you've produced and used them? How do you break them down, right? How are you metabolizing them? Are you eliminating them properly? Is there any level of stagnation or congestion anywhere in your system? What's going on with your adrenals? And we test that in the Dutch to then lay these results over top of the blood work where we see the thyroid, minerals, different things like that. A lot of the time now I'm running a GI map test as well. Sometimes we're referring out for hair trace mineral analysis. There's a lot of different tests that could be run, but I'd say those are the 4 more common.
Okay.
And then from there, it is taking them through a live, just like how you and I are seeing each other right now, and pulling up all their results and walking them through it so that they understand. And we record this because for me, one of the things I struggled with was that I had this thriving practice in person for so long, and we would have these amazing consultations and suggestions and all of that. And even though I could write things down, the conversations were the magic. And they would drive away, and then it's like the back of their head would open up and all the info would like go.
Yes.
And then they wouldn't remember.
Yeah.
So what I love about the virtual space is that we record everything. We help them build their own health portfolio so they can go back to it forever or any time that they get lost. And now listen again as to why this is important or what it is. Like, why am I taking that? Or why do I need to do that? Right. This is what's happening in my body.
Okay. And then from there, I'm assuming that you're making some kind of a customized plan for that woman based on whatever her test results were.
So we have protocols within the Hormone Project where we start them off with what is called a digestive reset. And this is really just like you and I were talking, you were saying how you're spring cleaning.
Yeah.
This is a cleanup. It's very gentle. It's really just identifying like what are the common things that you know when you eat it, give you a lot of gas and bloating, keep you up at night. So they're part of the observation where we don't need to do a test for this. We just need to be really clear on the things that are irritating you and the things that aren't. We need to remove them for a period of time. Mm-hmm. It's also about helping them to build out very basic base supplementation or support to, again, start to kind of fill in the gaps and create a foundation. Then from there, we move them into the first protocol for the Hormone Project is about the liver.
Okay.
Because this is where we are metabolizing and breaking down so much. For me, the drains have to be functioning optimally. So liver has to be moving and supported well. Poop has to be happening in a healthy manner. Lymphatic system, reduction in swelling or edema, those types of things. And so the liver protocol is very gentle. And then once that woman is like, good, stable, we're kind of seeing all the things that we would hope she'd be responding to. Then we move her into a 4-week adrenal protocol. Mm-hmm. And really the 4-week adrenal protocol is, again, it's a foundational because true adrenal healing it takes a long time. But here we're focusing on helping her with the relationship to her calendar, to her boundaries, her yeses and her nos, understanding the level of rest and the role that her adrenals play. And you can't eat your way out of this, right? Like this isn't about like having lots of cruciferous veggies and grass-fed butter and those types of things. This is kind of looking at the bigger picture. Based on her tests, do we need to give her adaptogenic support? Does she need glandular support? And then as we move her through that, then we come to really helping her understand the gut element of this and how that is such an integral. So we start with gut and we end with gut, like we bookend what we're doing with that. And so we spend 4 months with her. And so she works with a coach inside of it and has one-to-one with the coach. And then every single Monday night for us, we do our group coaching call. And so over 16 weeks with us over the 4 months, we are exploring a different topic, a different modality, potentially a different issue that's going on, Plus there is an entire like curriculum that they go through with modules. I have workout plans. Like it is full encompassing. It's, I say it and I say it in a way, and then I'm like, I don't want to overwhelm people, but it really is an educational system for women. It's like, imagine going back to school for a semester, but we're not testing you. I'm not grading you. I'm not judging you. Like it's not a pass or fail. It is literally just us saying to you, I wish you were taught this between the ages of like 8, 9, and 10 to start.
Yeah.
And that you had someone, like another woman that you could have linked arms with throughout the rest of your years. Because it just like, honestly, it literally breaks my heart when I'm talking to women in their 40s, 50s, and 60s who are meeting their body for the first time right now.
Yes.
And they've suffered because I just sit back and I'm like, this is not necessary. This didn't have to be this way.
Right. I love everything that you just said, and your protocol sounds incredible and also soul feeding for women. But I want to go back to one specific thing that you said, because this is the reason that I wanted to talk with you on the podcast today. And that was talking to a woman about her calendar and her yeses and her nos. So one of the things that I admire about you above everything else, all these amazing things that you do, Jen, I mean, like, it's amazing. Your social media is inspiring. Just everything that you're doing for women is so empowering for them. And I honor all of that. But one of the things that impressed me the most about you was when I was going back and forth with you, we were going to schedule these podcasts. And it must have been during the holidays. And I got a reply back that it was like, I am taking some time away to be with my family. I encourage you to do the same. You actually said that in your out of office reply, and you had something in there about like, it's really important to take time away and to have healthy boundaries. And I was like, wow, I've never encountered that in the entrepreneurial world. I've never encountered that with another business owner who felt that strongly about boundaries. And that's something that's also a really high value for me. And then I decided years ago, if I didn't have some strong yeses and some strong nos in place, that I was going to burn out so fast. But I find when it comes to women, and especially when it comes to moms or when it comes to entrepreneurs or both, that it is really, really hard to have healthy boundaries. And I feel like you really have this dialed in. So has it always been that way for you? Or how did you get to this point where you could say, I know there's still a million things to do in my business. I know there's still a million people that I can help or could help, but I need to take some time for me right now. How did you get to that point?
I burned out like to a fucking crisp a couple of times, honestly, especially when the kids were little and I owned a brick and mortar business. And I just kept coming back to the biggest struggle for me, and I think it is for so many entrepreneurs, and then you add children and a family into the dynamics, and it obviously just compounds it, is I always struggled with, if I felt like I was being the mom I wanted to be, then I was sucking at being the business owner that I wanted to be. And then if I was like nailing it in the business, then I was being a horrible mom and not living up to the mom that I wanted to be. And I got to this point when I was building my company, and I was building it in person first, where I would go in and I would give the absolute best parts of me to everyone that was coming into my studio, to my team, to my members, everyone. And then I would get home and I would give the absolute worst, crappiest leftovers to my children and to my husband. And I would recognize it. It's not like I was doing it and I didn't know. And that's what made it even harder for me. And so I would be able to sustain this for a chunk of time. And then I would be on the couch for 4 days. And then I would, muster myself back up. I'd make a little bit of changes, but then as soon as I felt back in my A game, I would slide right back into the same pattern. And it finally got to a point where, and I have a whole podcast episode about this, where I talk about this struggle where there was just a lot that came at the same time and literally just sidelined me for like a full week. And I literally physically couldn't get up and do any of the things. And I allowed myself to move into the couch and make my grooves, and I literally just cried and had a fever for 4 days. And
Mhm.
I, like my little ones were like putting cloths on my head. And my husband, I remember him getting down on his knees in front of me. And we've been together since we were teens in high school. And he was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't actually know who you are right now. You've never like you, I need you. And you're not like, what do I do? How do I get you back?
Mhm.
And I just remember like having this outer body moment of witnessing my little kids and my husband. And like, here I am. And I was like, oh my, what am I doing? What am I fucking doing? Like, this is not, I can't do this.
Yep.
And I literally like sat up and I just said to him, get me the phone. And he was like, what? And I was like, get me the phone. And I started to call other entrepreneurs and people that I looked up to. And I was like, I am literally going nowhere really fast. Tell me and show me, what am I not seeing? What do I need to do? And every person I got on the phone with was like, this is just your dharma. Like, you're just going to have to accept you're only going to earn this much money. And like, we're in the act of
Mhm.
servitude. And I was like, click, next. And I literally went through calling so many people because I was like, this can't be the way. Like, no, what? How did no one tell me that owning my own company was going to be this?
Yeah.
And it took me like half a dozen people later until finally I got on the phone with like a former boss from years before. And it was actually a man. And he just said to me, okay, what is the worst thing that's going to happen if you like walk away from the business? Like, Jen, you can do that. You're not, no one's going to die. But you might, if you keep doing this, like you might.
Yeah.
And he goes, but at the end of the day, like, you're not an employee. Like, you are a leader. You run this ship. You can define this. Stop letting the needs of everyone else come before your own and for your family. And I was like, okay, no one had ever said, no woman had said that to me before. No other female entrepreneur or boss around me was saying that. They were all telling me there's no such thing as balance. You're going to be exhausted. One day when the kids are older, like, you can sleep when you're dead. And I was just like, what? How are no other women? And what I came to realize was that so many, and I was there too, you're holding on by a thread. And you're so afraid that if you start to create boundaries that people aren't going to like you, business will shrink. They will move away from you. They will find someone else. And now everything you have worked so hard for won't be there anymore. And
Yeah.
I will tell you, it was the total opposite. When
Mhm.
I finally started to create boundaries and I started to make changes, and this was not like I literally just one day started to change it and everything morphed. That's not how it happened. It's still in progress. But when I finally started to create the boundaries for myself and for my family, my business grew exponentially
Mm.
and doors opened that I never would have thought possible. And so it was a very defining moment in my life for me. And, we are on a huge growth scale right now as a company. And every, 3 times a week when I meet with my team, we come back to the same things. How do we be efficient and proficient without sacrificing our time, energy, and selves in the process? How do we continue to deliver to our community? And here's the thing that I've learned working with women.
Mm.
There's lots of women in the beginning that they'll be angry that you don't get back to them right away. They won't like the fact that it might take 2 to 3 days to hear back from you. But we are actually teaching these women how to also essentially train other people to treat them in their life. And we're leading by example.
Amen. Preach. This is so good.
So yeah,
This is so good. This is so good.
but it's hard. And it's like in the beginning, my motto for a while, and I would like say it, and then I would be like, oh God, was I have to be okay with letting people down. I'm going to let people down. It's going to happen. And it's like a muscle. In the beginning, it's painful. You hurt when you first start to use it and you start to do this, but
Mhm.
then you strengthen it. And now this just becomes like, okay, this is the way now.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So from the point of ultimate burnout
Yes.
to where you are now, what are some of the key things that you feel are like lines in the sand for you? Like, this is a boundary that I don't cross. What does healthy boundaries look like for you now?
Number one, I answer 0 emails or messages on the weekend.
Love it.
So that does not mean that I don't ever work on the weekend,
Mhm.
but I don't respond, because if I do it once, I've now created the expectation I'm available 7 days a week for you.
Yes.
I have very strict clinical hours that I don't go outside of those boundaries. So it's like in the past when it used to be, well, what works for you? I don't ask that anymore. I set my hours, I set my days, I have a link that goes out now. So I had to remove myself because I'm an emotional person. A link online is not.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you can't barter with the link.
Yeah.
And be like, what about this? No, as where for me, I would just feel bad and I'd be like, oh, I'll make this one exception. And then if I saw that one person on the calendar, I'd be like, well, I have one. I might as well just book, right? Like you do those things.
Yep.
So that was a big one.
That is so healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that is something that a lot of women can relate to, because even if they're not a full-time entrepreneur, there's a lot of women in the home-based business realm.
Mm-hmm.
And what I see happening in that world is whatever little time they have left over after everything else gets taken care of, now they feel like they need to constantly respond to everybody's text messages, questions, and having a system in place so that you can't even do that. I think it's a great way to still get the information and serve your people, but also ultimately to like have integrity to your own space and your own energy and what you need.
Yeah. And I think, the other side of that was, that's what I had to start to do on the business side of it. But then I also had to have boundaries in my home for my family. When I sold my in-person business in 2015, like you're seeing me, I'm in my bedroom right now, right? Like this is where a lot of things happen. And I had to also have boundaries with my children and with my husband about like, just because I'm here, it doesn't mean I'm actually here.
Right.
And so we had to create systems, and I learned I had to create transition time. So I couldn't go ending an interview at 4:30 and then go right downstairs and become a mom. I had to actually massage it and be like, okay, if I end an interview at 4:30 or a client, I'm not going to actually enter the kitchen until 5 because I need to lie on the ground and like, and process, or I have to get, this file out or whatever it is now. So I'm not doing it tonight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I just had to have the buffers. And when they were little and I was leaving the house and coming back, like I would literally park down the street away from the house and just sit on the side of the road and be like, okay, you can like, all right, let's just like take a moment here, regroup, as opposed to flying in the driveway, flying in the door. And now, the two worlds colliding, and I've had no time in between to breathe.
Yeah. That is really, 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 really important advice right there, is that transition time. And I think especially right now with so many people working from home that don't typically work from home, we may have relied upon our commute to be that transition point, and now we're not getting it at all.
Yeah.
So figuring out a way with yourself, with your partner, to work that in, I think is a really great tip. So you said earlier that, when you were feeling like if you were killing it in the business, you were failing it as a mom, and if you were successful as a mom and a wife, that you weren't holding through in the business like you wanted to. Now with your boundaries in place, do you find that self-talk to be different?
I do. And I'm also a lot kinder to myself. I have a lot more compassion to myself, and I create a lot more grace. So I no longer have a goal to be the perfect mom or live up to anyone else's expectation. And this actually came from having a lot of open conversations with my kids and with my husband. Like, how can I show up for you the best? Like, because, and it's interesting because they had different answers, like the version of me that my daughter needs and looks for is not the same as what my son needs. And vice versa. And so a lot of it, I was making up a story in my head of what I was supposed to be for everyone.
Yeah.
And that was my own story. That was my own block.
Okay.
And it wasn't actually true. And so I would also say for women listening, actually ask your family, so that was the part of it, for sure. And even in business now, I have lofty goals. Like, I don't know if you follow the Enneagram. I'm a 3.
Yep.
I'm an achiever, and it is a constant daily, like, internal dialogue with myself because I'm also a visionary. So I see the big picture, and I have to remind myself, because I'm not a details person, I can get myself into an overcommitment dilemma.
Yes. Yep.
Right. And this is also where I would say, and it's why it's a big part of what I teach now, ever since I really applied cyclical living to my life based on my own menstrual cycle and my physiology, this has been much easier because I don't overcommit when I'm actually on my own cycle. My, luteal window coming into my cycle, it's a very different look and vibe in my calendar versus my follicular and my ovulatory phase. So it's been a cool journey. It's not been easy. I would never say to anybody getting to this point has been easy, but the boundaries, literally to me, they're a lifeline.
So that's where I wanted to start landing the ship with us today is, we hear a lot of talk about boundaries and that they're important, but you are literally on the front lines working with women that are coming to you with all different types of disruption in their bodies. And we were having a conversation the other day about a particular client that you had just seen who had all kinds of crazy cortisol, adrenal mayhem happening.
Yeah.
And you were chatting with her, and I don't know if you want to relate a little bit about that conversation, but just some of the things that we're adding into that. So can we talk about how this overcommitment, unrealistic expectations, trying to be available all the time to people pleasing, all of these things that go into having unhealthy boundaries, they actually have a physical impact. And I know that you're seeing a lot of that. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Oh, huge. Honestly, I would say right now in this last year, because of the unprepared additional load that we have been given as women, mothers, parents in general, but in business, it's just a whole another level. That the level of stress and lack of boundaries and burning the candle is causing not just physically, physiologically, mentally, and emotionally, a whole new slew of issues that people are reaching to a meal plan or to supplements to try to fix. And then they're getting so frustrated that they're not feeling better. And then when I have the conversation and say, okay, you are doing so good with how you're nourishing your body right now, and you're doing so good with the supplements. Has it ever occurred to you that the reason that you're not feeling any different is because you're not actually functioning and living any different? Like you haven't changed anything in your calendar from the time you wake up until the time you go to bed. Lying in your bed, you are on your device. You are answering other people. You are showing up for Here's the thing that I learned is that someone else's 911 emergency only becomes yours if you allow it.
Oh, yes. Say that again. Say that 10 times. Put that on a piece of paper and look at it 5 times a day. I mean, that's huge.
And the reality is most things aren't an emergency, but we can make everything an emergency. And so the women I work with, they look at everything in life like it is an emergency and it needs them right now. And the problem is that they are literally over delivering. And so the communication to their body in this constant state of stress is, I need more from you. I need more. So whether it's, I need more cortisol pumped out, I need more adrenaline available, I need more stomach acid available, I need more T4 being secreted, I need a higher level of TSH, coming through from that pituitary, or the body's recognizing and picking up on all this higher stress. And it's going, this is not a safe environment. We need to start to down regulate. I don't think it's actually safe for her to ovulate next month. And now she's going to have a drop in progesterone. And now her anxiety is going to go through the roof. And now she's not going to be able to cope and manage. And to her, nothing has changed. She hasn't done it. She hasn't eaten anything different. None of her routines have changed. But that can also be the very reason is that none of your routines have changed.
Right.
Right? It's like, what do we say? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting a different result. And this isn't the woman's fault. We have been trained to believe, and see, this is what's different about the Hormone Project. And it's interesting because from the outside, we have to, as a company, still talk to the woman and meet her where she's at now, which is protocols, testing, solution. That's how we have to get her to come and talk to us. Once we have her, then it's like, okay, we got you in here and we are going to help you on these things, but now we're going to get to the juiciness of what we really need to work on. Had we said to a woman, we're going to have these conversations, we're going to talk about boundaries, do you think she's going to sign up for that?
No. No.
Right. So it's like also understanding the psychology of us as individuals.
Mhm.
It's like, we're busy. I don't have time. I only want to work with the people and do the thing where I feel like I'm going to tell me, just friggin' tell me what to do. And it's like, I could tell you what to do until, I'm blue in the face, but I can't move in with you. I can't actually make it happen. And I can't help you if you aren't willing to actually start to say no.
Right. So then I know that there's women that you've helped to do that, women
Oh
that
yeah.
you've helped to say no. So
Yeah.
can you share with us some of the things that they start to experience even physically as they start to put those boundaries down? What kinds of things start to regulate right away?
Well, the word that comes to mind of what they start to feel is liberation.
Mm.
It is liberation. And in the beginning, it's hard for them. And then they're like, I just want to friggin' say no to everything. Like, now I'm addicted. Like because it creates a layer of simplicity where they're like, I didn't realize how freeing this was to actually choose, and that I had a choice. And I think that's what it comes down to. So what we notice is right out of the gates, sleep improves.
Mm.
Their reaction, instead of being reactive to everything that happens because they don't have any room and space, they actually can create a pause before they respond. So there's
Yes.
a huge difference between reacting and responding. So they start to respond. Energy, their cravings. They're like, you know what? Because I'm not so stressed out, I don't need that glass of wine every single night anymore.
Mm.
I find that, like, yeah, I still love the taste of chocolate, but I don't need to have it anymore. Or just their relationships in general start to kind of soften and change. They're more loving and kind to themselves and to their bodies overall.
Mm.
We even notice it just in how they communicate with us. Like, you can tell a lot based on the frequency, the tonality within emails and messaging about where someone is at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So it's really remarkable. Menstrual cycle irregularities within 2 to 3 cycles start to calm down and regulate. Ovulatory signs like cervical mucus starts to come back into a beautiful rhythm. Headaches start to diminish. Skin starts to calm down. Digestion starts to soften. They start to poop again. I mean, a lot of women don't realize they're constipated because they're literally holding on to everyone else's crap and their own.
Oh, yes. Isn't that interesting how the
Mhm.
emotional shows up in the physical that way?
Well, and it's because our vagus nerve is impacted by this as well, right? So if we're constantly restricting and constrictive and like holding on, like, we don't realize what we are actually communicating to our body, and the ripple effect from that. So yeah.
Wow. It's incredible to me that just being able to learn to use the one simple word of no can
Mhm.
really start the body, the soul, the spirit, everything on a completely different trajectory.
Yeah.
And you are living proof that your life doesn't end, your business doesn't fail, your kids don't turn into delinquents just
Yeah.
because you decide to have a little bit more space for yourself in your life. So I think, Jen, after hearing all of this, people are going to want to work with you. So can you tell people where to find you, how to connect with you, and what you're most excited about right now in your business?
Yeah, absolutely. So Instagram is where I spend time socially. So it's Jenn Pike with 2 N's. To work with my team and I, you can visit jennpike.com/the Hormone Project. You can fill out an application there. And then we actually invite you onto a call with somebody on our team so that we can really help you to understand, like, is this a good fit for you? Is there something else that we can offer you? The thing I'm most excited about right now is the growth of the Hormone Project, because we are helping so many more women. We have more coaches that have come onto our team, and it's so beautiful to hear the successes. And then inside of Synced, which is an online movement studio that I have that teaches women how to move and nourish and support their body based on either their menstrual cycle or the lunar cycle, the wisdom of the moon, if they don't have a cycle. So those are the 2 things right now that I'm really loving.
Oh my gosh, those are amazing, amazing projects. And I love that they just encompass all of the different life lessons that you've had, along with all of the learning that you've done. And now you're offering this up to women on a silver platter and just say, please take this, take and eat, and just see how this will shift for you. So everybody listening, I encourage you to go follow Jen. Her social media is amazing. She is a very authentic person that I think you're going to enjoy. Um, you're not going to get anything but just straightforward Jenn, and she's going to give it to you real and raw, and also filled with potency of all of the things that she has to offer. So again, jennpike.com. Thank you so much for being on the Holistic Ease podcast. I hope we can have you on again sometime. Talk
Oh, yes, I'd
about
love
some
to.
stuff.
Yeah, I'd
And
love to.
in the
Yeah.
meantime, thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please make sure that you comment, like, subscribe, and I always appreciate those 5-star reviews, and I will see you next time.
Thank you.